Okay, so diving into dancing our way to human AI consciousness.
Yeah?
I gotta say, just the title alone, right?
Yeah.
It grabs you.
It's a good one.
It feels very now, you know? Like everyone's talking about technology, AI is getting more powerful seemingly every day, and we're all trying to figure out where we fit into all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the book starts with this sense of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
this idea that, like, the 21st century, things are changing so fast and it's not even enough to adapt anymore. Like, we have to fundamentally rethink what it even means to be human in this, like, rapidly changing world.
Yeah. And the book seems to connect this need for a new type of awareness, a new consciousness. It ties that directly to AI, right? Like,
Right.
It feels almost existential. Like, are we going to become the robots, or is there something unique about being human that we kind of need to hold on to even as technology, marches forward?
Yeah. That's the question that the entire book kind of dances around,
Yeah.
right? It's like weaving its way through the whole thing. And to kind of grapple with it, to kind of give us some handholds, the author takes us on this really fascinating historical tour,
Oh, cool.
looking at different eras and their defining challenges and how people in those times grappled with what it meant to be better humans.
I love when books do that.
Yeah.
It's like that zoomed out view of history, you know what I mean?
check.
To see how, what did it mean to be a good person in the Roman Empire,
Yeah. Yeah. And they're looking like back then it was like this incredible melting pot of cultures.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire is exploding. And yet you have this focus on like personal morality,
Right.
and amidst all this chaos, they're like, how do we find order in this vast, complex system? And it's so interesting to see how the institutions back then, the temples, the schools, really shaped people's values.
Totally. It makes you realize how much those external structures really shape us, right?
Absolutely.
What we aspire to, what we think we should be doing with our lives, Did the book jump to other time periods too?
It did.
Okay.
And the jumps make the comparison so interesting. So you go from this like Roman Empire to fast forward to the 10th century, and it's like a completely different world. It's like
Yeah.
super religious, right?
Yep.
You got churches, mosques. Daily life is steeped in spiritual practice, and they're focused on like humility and charity. It's like the whole definition of quote unquote being a better human had completely transformed.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thread through the whole book.
Yeah.
You go from there to the Enlightenment with its emphasis on reason, individual rights.
Yeah.
Then you're in the 20th century, you've got global conflicts, people yearning for peace, and each era with its own set of challenges, right?
Right.
But it reshaped how people defined what it meant to be like a good human
Yeah.
and what it meant to make a better world
Yeah.
today.
Okay, so we've zoomed through like 1,000 years of history. What's the point? Like, why is this historical context so important?
Well, because it brings us to us, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to strive for a better world today in the 21st century, And the book argues that the challenges we face are totally unique. I mean, think about it. Rapid technological change, environmental crisis, information overload. Like, it's less about emperors and plagues and more about climate change and social media and, of course, AI, right? These are the things that are shaping our world. And it's raising a whole new set of questions about what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious.
It's like all the old maps we used to have, they just don't work anymore, right?
Right.
Like we're in uncharted territory, and to like find our way, we need a whole new understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And that's where like this whole framework for understanding consciousness comes in, right?
Yeah.
Like this is where I start to get really interested, right? Because I am a visual person.
Okay.
So when the book started talking about skeletons and consciousness having all these levels, I was like, okay, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Because, how often do you get to visualize something as like abstract as consciousness?
It's a powerful image, right?
Yeah.
And what they do is like they break it down into these 5 levels,
Okay.
starting with the individual like you right now. And then it kind of expands outward,
Okay.
like those Russian nesting dolls,
Okay.
where each one contains the next.
Okay. So walk me through the levels.
Sure.
I remember the book talked about like a physical self, an emotional self.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so you start with the physical,
Okay.
which is like your body, your senses,
right.
your health, like the tangible experience of like being in the world.
Right.
And then you have the emotional level, right?
Okay.
Which is your feelings, your intuition, your gut reactions.
It's interesting to think about those as 2 separate layers of experience. Like
Yeah.
we always talk about the mind-body connection.
Right.
But the skeleton thing, it makes it like much more concrete. It's
Yeah.
like these levels are always like
Totally.
interacting.
They're
Yeah.
influencing each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? They're not actually separate.
Right.
They're all working together.
Yeah.
And that interplay is like where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you've got the physical, the emotional.
Okay.
Then you go up to the mental level.
Okay.
Which is your thoughts, your beliefs, how you're interpreting the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then layered on top of that is like the situational self or the social self,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
right? So how you interact with others, the roles you
Probably
play.
like how I might be more outgoing with my friends
Totally.
and more reserved in, a work meeting or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's almost like we're wearing different like hats or masks or something.
Right, exactly.
Depending on, the situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then all of these layers from like your physical sensations to like how you are in a group, right?
Right.
They're all kind of influenced by what they call the energetic self.
Okay.
And this is like the core of your being.
Okay.
It's like what influences your energy levels, your openness to new experiences, how you like connect with the world around you.
Okay. The energetic self, this is interesting to me,
Yeah.
but it's a little like, I don't know, fuzzy, I guess. Like,
That's
what
not-
is that exactly? Is it like a spiritual thing?
Yeah.
Or is there a more, I don't know, grounded way to think about it?
It's a great question. And I
Yeah.
think it's one that like a lot of people, when they hit that part in the book, they're like, wait, what?
Right.
And
Yeah.
even the book acknowledges that. Like, this is a more abstract kind of concept, right?
Right.
But they draw on like Eastern traditions,
Yeah.
Western traditions,
Yeah.
and they basically say, like, you can think of it as your life force,
Okay.
your vitality, like that aliveness
Yeah.
that just fuels everything.
So not just like my physical energy,
Right.
but like an inner spark almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the wellspring from where everything flows.
Okay.
And they even say, we can feel it, right? Like sometimes we feel open and receptive and like full of that vitality.
Right.
And other times we feel closed off, guarded, depleted.
It's like that feeling when you're super engrossed in like a project that you love
Totally.
versus like you're burned out,
Yes.
You're
You're just totally.
two different energetic states.
Totally, yeah.
And the book argues that just like you learn to manage your physical energy.
Right. Like eating well,
Totally.
sleeping enough.
Yeah, you can learn to manage your energetic self too
Okay.
through things like mindfulness, meditation,
Oh, interesting.
even just being aware of your energy levels
Right.
and what influences them. So by understanding these different levels of ourselves, the skeleton we're all walking around with, the book is saying like we can become more conscious.
Absolutely, more intentional.
Yeah,
Your life.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really practical, right? Remember who we were talking about how each level is interconnected?
Yeah.
So they have this really cool visual of the skeleton to kind of explain how it works.
Okay. So we're not talking about like actual bones here,
No.
like a metaphor.
Yeah, it's like a framework for how we experience and interact with the world.
Gotcha.
So this skeleton is made up of 5 key elements: attention, intention, attitude, action, and impact.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this.
Okay, yeah.
Break it down for me.
Okay, so imagine this. Your attention is like a spotlight. It's where you're choosing to focus your energy, your awareness, right?
Right.
And what you focus on shapes your intentions,
Okay.
like what you're hoping to achieve or create.
Right.
Then you've got your attitude, right?
Okay.
Your mindset, your approach,
Yeah.
which shapes the actions you take.
Right.
And those actions, they create ripples.
Yeah.
They have an impact on the world around you.
It's like a chain of reaction almost.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And it all stems from that initial point of focus,
Yeah.
your attention.
Wow.
It makes you realize how important it is to be conscious of where you're directing your energy.
So true. Yeah.
And this skeleton framework, it's not just about understanding ourselves as individuals.
Okay.
They argue that it scales up.
What do you mean?
It applies to institutions, societies, even humanity as a whole.
Wait, so a company has a skeleton?
Yeah, well, think about it, right? Like a company's attention might be laser focused on like profit margins.
Okay.
Their intention might be to like expand market share.
Right.
Their actions like marketing campaigns, product launches, right?
Yeah.
And the impact, well, that's where it gets interesting because it affects consumers, employees, even the environment.
So the skeleton idea, it helps us understand not just like individual behavior,
Right.
but like how entire systems behave.
Yes, exactly. And the book argues that like by understanding these dynamics,
Wow.
how attention, intention, action, it's all creating these ripples of impact.
Right.
We can start to make more conscious choices about the kind of world that we want to create.
It's like getting a behind-the-scenes look at how things really work
Yeah,
at all these different levels.
totally.
Yeah, and that brings us to one of the other big ideas in the book, which is zooming in and zooming out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now we're switching camera lenses.
You got it. You got it.
Okay, tell me more.
So think of it as a mental shift in perspective.
Okay.
When you zoom in, you're focused on the details, like the specifics of a situation.
Right.
But when you zoom out, you see the bigger picture, like how it all connects.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're feeling stuck in your career, right?
Yeah.
If you zoom in, you might be focused on your skills, your resume, like the specific jobs you're applying for.
Right, right.
But if you zoom out, you might start to think about like your values, your passions, your long-term goals.
Yeah.
It gives you a different perspective.
So zooming out helps you connect your individual actions to like a larger purpose.
Exactly.
Wait.
Or let's take something like climate change. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Zooming in might be like looking at your own carbon footprint.
Okay.
How much you drive, what kind of light bulbs you use.
Right.
Zooming out means understanding like the role of corporations, of governments, like these global systems
Yeah.
that are contributing to this crisis.
It gives you that wider view.
Yeah, it gives you a broader perspective.
This is powerful stuff. Like we need both, right?
We do.
We need to zoom in. We need to zoom out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book argues that this ability to like shift between those perspectives, it's crucial for navigating the 21st century.
Right.
It's about understanding how our individual actions connect to these larger systems and how those systems, they influence our lives too.
It's like we're all part of this big, intricate dance and understanding the steps, the rhythm,
Yes.
the other dancers, right?
Yes.
It's all kind of essential if we want to move, I don't know, with intention,
gracefully
gracefully, yeah.
through this world, yeah.
And, just like in any dance, there are times when, like, we're totally present, aware of every move we make.
Right.
And then there are times when we're basically on autopilot.
Now you're bringing in autopilot. This is a concept that really resonated with me, probably because I find myself on autopilot way more often than I'd like to admit.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
It's part of being human, right?
Yeah, yeah. But the book defines it as this state of reacting to situations based on like your ingrained habits and social conditioning rather than making conscious choices.
It's like when you're driving home from work
Yeah.
and you suddenly realize, like, I don't even remember the last 5 miles.
Exactly.
Or like, reaching for your phone first thing in the morning without even thinking about it.
Totally.
It's like our brain's way of saving energy, but it can also keep us stuck.
Right. We're just in that rut,
It's in a rut. Yeah, totally.
making choices out of habit, out of fear, out of like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Instead of what do I actually want? What aligns with my values?
So how do we break free from autopilot then?
Right.
Especially in a world that frankly seems like it's almost designed to keep us distracted
Cool.
and on autopilot. you know?
Yeah. And that is where that dance to consciousness comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's this journey of self-discovery.
Right.
It's about understanding these patterns,
Right.
these skeletons, these biases that are shaping our behavior and learning to kind of
Yeah.
like pause, question, maybe choose a different path.
It's like we're being asked to become more conscious dancers, right?
Right.
More aware of our own steps and how they affect everyone else on the dance floor. Which brings us, of course, to the AI in the room. We've talked about consciousness, this skeleton we all share, the need to break free from autopilot. But where does AI fit into this whole dance?
Yeah, this is where the book like takes this big leap. And honestly, where things get really, really interesting, right? It asks that big question. Could AI develop its own form of consciousness?
Okay, now you're pushing some of my sci-fi buttons. It's easy to go down those rabbit holes, right? Like robots becoming self-aware and all that. But does the book actually give any concrete answers about AI consciousness?
It doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but it uses that framework that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah, okay.
The levels of the self, the skeleton, this dance of attention and intention. It uses all of that to kind of explore what a future with conscious AI might actually look like.
So it's less about like debating whether AI will become conscious and more about like being prepared for the possibilities.
Exactly. And the book says that like that preparation, it starts by recognizing how intertwined we already are with AI,
Right.
Like think about it. Algorithms are curating our social media feeds. Facial recognition unlocks our phones. Navigation apps are telling us where to go. Like, we're already in this dance, whether we realize it or not.
And it's only going to get more like intertwined, right? I mean, you hear about these breakthroughs in AI almost every day.
Right.
Machines are writing poetry now,
Yeah.
composing music. They can like diagnose diseases.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning, right?
Right.
And the book really highlights how these advancements, things like machine learning, deep learning, all these things we hear about, they have the potential to completely revolutionize so many parts of our lives.
Totally. Yeah.
From healthcare to education, to the very nature of work itself.
Okay, so let's talk about the music of this dance, right?
Well,
If humans and AI are the partners, are we dancing to like a harmonious waltz, or is it more like a mosh pit?
the book says it could be both.
Really?
Yeah. It all depends on the choices we make.
Right.
It presents AI as this like double-edged sword, right? This powerful tool that could either really enhance our humanity or like erode it.
Okay, so give me the good news first. How could AI like make us more human?
Well, imagine AI helping us break free from those autopilot routines we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Right? Like, it could analyze our habits, our biases, even our like unconscious motivations.
Yeah.
And give us this level of self-awareness that like we could only dream of before.
It'd be like having like a superpowered therapist available 24/7.
Exactly.
Yeah, what else?
Well, imagine AI that personalizes education to each student's unique learning style,
Oh, wow.
or tailors medical treatments to like our individual DNA.
Right.
Like, AI can help us solve these big problems like climate change,
Right.
poverty, by analyzing data and like seeing patterns that we might just completely miss.
Right. It's like AI could amplify our ability to understand stuff,
Totally.
solve problems both on a personal level and like a global level.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's one edge of the sword. What about the other? What are the potential downsides?
One thing the book raises is like AI dependency.
What do you mean?
So like if we start relying on AI too much for decision making, right?
Yeah.
What happens to our own sense of agency?
Oh, interesting.
Our ability to think for ourselves, to make our own choices?
It's like those dystopian sci-fi stories
Exactly.
where like humans are just these passive observers in a world run by machines.
Totally, yeah. And there's like, what happens to human connection, right?
Right.
As AI gets more sophisticated, will we just retreat into virtual worlds?
Yeah.
Like interacting with AI companions instead of like nurturing our real life relationships?
Yeah, I can see that happening. It's already so easy to get sucked into the digital world, and like if AI makes it even more enticing.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little scary, honestly.
Totally. And then, of course, there's the issue of bias, which we talked about before, right?
Right.
AI systems are only as good as the data we feed them.
Right.
And if that data reflects like our own societal biases,
Yeah.
AI could end up just perpetuating and even like amplifying those injustices.
It's like giving a megaphone to our worst impulses.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure that AI helps us become better
Yeah.
and doesn't, make things worse?
And that's where it comes back to consciousness.
Yep.
Our individual and collective awareness.
Right.
The more conscious we are of ourselves, our own biases, our values, our aspirations, the more conscious we can be in shaping how we develop AI and how we integrate it into our lives.
So it's not about rejecting AI, it's about like approaching it with open eyes.
With intention.
Well, with intention.
With awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it's about having these tough conversations as a society, right?
Right.
Asking the big ethical questions and making sure that the development of AI is guided by human values,
Compassion, yeah.
compassion, empathy, a desire for a more just and sustainable world.
Yeah, it feels like we're at this like really pivotal moment, and the choices that we make today about AI, about how we interact with it, how we teach our kids about it, it's going to shape everything for generations to come.
It's like we're writing the music for this dance right now.
This has been an amazing conversation, like eye-opening, to say the least. If our listeners take away one thing from this whole deep dive, what would you want it to be?
That the future isn't set in stone. Like, we actually get to help write it. And that power, it's in our own hands, it's in our hearts, it's in our minds. By cultivating consciousness, both individually and together, we can create a future where technology and humanity, they actually work together. You know?
It's a beautiful vision, and it's one worth working towards. This journey of consciousness, of personal growth and responsibility to each other. It's not always easy, but it's what it's all about, right?
It is.
So let's keep learning, keep growing, keep asking the tough questions, and keep dancing our way toward a better future.